Hello, Patricia.
Good evening, Councillor Redden. Good evening, everyone.
Evening. I'm having a wee bit connectivity
Celine.
problems, so I might have to switch my video off through the meeting sometimes.
Sometimes that helps, doesn't it?
But it's all right now, so hopefully it'll be all right.
Just to remind everyone, we're already live. Just so you're aware of that.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening, Leanne.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi.
Good evening.
And that's
Evening.
gone half past. I think we'll get the meeting started. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. I'm conscious that this time of the year a lot of people are very busy, so hopefully we'll get through the agenda as quick as possible. And if I could ask everybody making reports to keep it as brief and concise as possible. Thanks. Have we any apologies for the meeting?
We do, Councillor Redden. Councillor Curran, Inspector Graham McLaughlin has sent apologies, but I understand PC McCluskey is attending in his place. Laura Campbell's tentative, so she might be online, but if she's not, we'll record her as being absent as well. Gail Smith from VIP, Anne-Marie Tracy from Bellshill YMCA, but we have Joseph Budd attending from the YMCA tonight, and also Gerard McMahon is unable to come along tonight as well.
Thanks, Christine. The minutes of the previous meeting. Do we agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Thanks. Matters arise. The Bellshill junction update. I was under the impression that there would be a report tonight from the Chief Executive regarding that. Do you know anything about it, Christine, Matt?
So, Councillor Redden, I'm here instead of Matt Costello now. I'll now be covering the Bellshill area. I'm the Community Partnership Manager, be covering the area. We don't have a report tonight, but I think Alison maybe was going to come in and provide some feedback in relation to when we can expect some feedback and potentially a report.
Right.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Chair. Apologies. There seems to have just been a misunderstanding in relation to feedback. I've just caught up with Nicole Patterson today, who you know is the relevant head of service. And in response to your inquiry, a briefing was produced, but for an error, it hasn't been circulated. So Nicole is going to pick that up, and I think we can make sure it comes back to the board and can be circulated out with the meeting schedule. Essentially though, however, I can confirm that I think last time I said that there was going to be a review and an up-to-date analysis undertaken with an expectation that a plan be produced following consultation for March, and that is still the timescales that are proposed in relation to that. In the interim, as some board members will know, there has been some separate developments in relation to assessment of safe walking routes to Cardinal Newman, and there has been an adjustment made, but that is a separate issue and has not been specifically part of the planning around the junction. So I can only apologise. I know that the letter was received and was acted upon, but there's somewhere the communication seems to have been broken down and you haven't received the briefing back. But that will be prioritised now and will be circulated to yourself for consideration and for sharing with the board as appropriate.
Because I believe that the concern was that they're doing another consultation or whatever, and this has been done 2 or 3 times before. I think this was where the frustration was coming along. Bob, do you want to come in? Yeah. Anybody, any questions on this at the moment?
Sorry, I was on mute there, Jim. I was speaking away there and I didn't realise I was on mute. Sorry about that. Just about the Bellshill situation. I really am very disappointed, and I get what Alison's saying. There's been a misunderstanding, but the minutes are reflecting and saying, and I'll read out, at this point there is not a solution with the design that's been agreed. And it said here, Alison confirmed the survey is the most realistic way to take this issue forward. I'm seeking clarity here tonight on what is meant by a survey, because there's been an unbelievable amount of work done at this site, and now we're talking about a survey. Does Alison know exactly what that means? I know you've been told that, Alison, but through you, Chair, what's the survey going to be about?
Chair, if you're happy for me to respond, I will respond. Clearly, the plan was there were clearly challenges with the previous review of, I think we spoke about last time, finding a solution that was satisfactory both for ourselves and Transport Scotland, and because of their responsibility for the A725 and the slip roads, then clearly it needs to be a position that's agreeable to both. And I think the original options that were explored, potentially there was concern about the impact, the number of lights that would need to be put on the junction and the impact on queuing. The proposal that Transport colleagues were doing was get to redo with post-COVID traffic levels to make sure that the solution identified was the most viable and had the best chance of getting agreement from all parties. So I think there was no dilution of the commitment to take action to resolve the issue, but the view was that that was required. Certainly, I think that will be reflected in the briefing that was intended to be done for today and shared, and there'll be a little bit more detail on that from the relevant team that hopefully explains the detail of that. But the proposal would still be that there is a plan that is drawn up in terms of what the resolution for March.
Thank you. Angela, you want to come in?
Yeah, I presume the survey is about a traffic survey, but to say that lights would cause a tailback from the slip roads onto the A725 any more than it is at present would seem something of a minor miracle to me, because not so much coming from Coatbridge to Bellshill, but from the Wraith to Bellshill, the tailback on to the A725 is a regular occurrence at peak times, particularly in the evening. And I have been caught up in it because that's the junction I come off to go home. So even with post-COVID travel maybe down a little, there is still a problem, particularly with heavy goods vehicles. So it's what difference the lights would make. It's the traffic can't go off there with the traffic coming from Bellshill, the total volume of traffic coming from Bellshill, and the traffic can't go off the slip road. So if there were lights, that would maybe enable less of a tailback. Maybe they'll know better, though. They're the experts in the field, and we'll give them the chance, Alison.
Yeah, and apologies. You'll appreciate it's not my area of expertise, so I can't comment on the detail, but I know it is to try and ensure there's an appropriate balance.
Thanks, Alison.
Road safety concerns.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Thanks, it's John McLeish for the Parent Voice. Can I just come in very briefly?
Yes.
So obviously just Alison's myself as well, that's obviously been pushing it from a child's point of view. The timescales, and I wasn't expecting a particular update from you tonight. I know that it was just that you had there were supposed to be consultants appointed to carry out a further review and that analysis. Can I just confirm, are you saying that the consultants have been appointed and that they're the ones that have put some kind of briefing together? Because I know that's what was in the minutes of the last meeting.
Apologies, I don't have the exact detail beyond the fact that the time frame that I provided last time is still the expected time frame for the work to be concluded in the proposal. So I'm assuming that's right about the consultants, but other than that will be something that we'll certainly check and will be shared back with you. But certainly the overarching time frame that I shared last time is still the time frame that colleagues are saying that they're operating to and would expect proposals to be made by.
Okay, thanks very much. No, I think to comment on, Councillor, just to further on from what Christine had said, was that they deemed that the junction across the road from Capos, or the old Capos, it's now Caesar's Bar, that's what made that an unsafe walking route from the people from Fallside and View Park. It's not anything to do with. I find that quite incredible that that's what's caused us to enforce that the kids of View Park and Fallside, that they get a bus when they're actually going across two slip roads already, and that has somehow been deemed up until now, but I don't know if it's been given the term or not, that somehow that was safe. But now we've got a junction where traffic is almost essentially at a stop at all times. Difficult to cross, absolutely dangerous, definitely. But compared with running across two slip roads, I can't help thinking again that politics is definitely at play with this. And myself and people like me are trying to push this agenda on, seem to be that road safety for the children, particularly the elderly, the vulnerable, no one can really safely cross that. But as quick as that, somebody puts a letter in about an unsafe one at Caesars, and we've got buses going for View Park and Fallside, whilst I absolutely welcome it, and I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, for that to have been the tipping point, for that to happen based on what we've already got 4 and 5 years later, I think that probably says everything about the process of where we are with this. And I'm not got faith at the moment that a plan will be agreed or put forward in March 2012. I'm not saying there won't be a plan, but how that's going to come into play when we're already here 4 or 5 years down the line with a big plan that came in that was local authority guidance about what was going to happen there. Transport Scotland had agreed in principle to do something with this, and I'm not seeing now how a magical solution that they're going to agree on is going to come about in March. I just feel this is kicking a can down the road, and it's the kids and the vulnerable and the elderly that are the ones that are being left to keep being told there was something further down the line. It's absolutely nothing to do with you, Alison. It's just I would like that minuted on behalf of the parents and the kids at the school, that we are absolutely just being left here just keeping further review. This was all done, and I appreciate traffic might have changed somewhat, but the principle is the same. Something needs to go on those 2 slip roads to give pedestrians, bikes, buggies, prams the priority over the cars. And whatever workable solution that needs to be through to health and safety, procedures, processes, that has to happen sooner rather than later, in whatever form it is. Suppose I said at the start, supposing it was 2 zebra crossings, that's got to be better than what it is now, which is basically at the moment the motorist has priority. The motorist has priority above pedestrians. So even an interim measure, whilst we sort all this out, it's got to be better day to day than what it is. And I appreciate you're not in a position to say that. That's what we as a parent voice group have said now for 4, 6 years. It's incredible. We don't know what the plan should be. We don't understand the nuts and bolts of it. What we know is the school kids and the pedestrians and the vulnerable need to have a safe chance. They have an equal chance of getting across the road, but they haven't got that. And whilst we do nothing, and that's where we are just now, we're absolutely nowhere. No one is any safer than they were before. So I don't want it to sound like I was preaching or anything like that, but that, hopefully you can appreciate, and hopefully when it comes back, the plan takes account of the fact of the urgency of the situation, not to do with what about cars and what about safety on the roads going back. There is a safety issue on the road. Queuing traffic, whilst that's also a safety issue, people are in cars when they crash in at the back of their cars. That's a built-in safety measure. There is no safety to a kid walking across the road and getting knocked down. There's no protection at all. So that's how I feel about it. I look forward to how we got on in March and how quick those timescales are, because I honestly believe that we will be no further on this time next year based on this with a lick of paint on a road or a traffic sign up or whatever it is, because so far all I've heard is we're going to do this, we're going to review it, and we're really no further on. And I appreciate, Alison, you're at the tail end of this, but it's just if you could make sure that that's pushed on or promoted the next time there's a meeting about that.
Okay, thanks, John. Hughie, you want in?
Chair, it's a different subject. Is that okay?
Right, is there anything else to say on the Bellshill Hill?
Hi, it's Dennis O'Keefe here. I'm quite new to the party, so I've just been listening in there, and I was going to ask how long it's going on, but John just advised it was about 6 years, I think. Not familiar with the area, but is there any kind of traffic warden, traffic monitoring, or people at crossing wardens, anything like that could be done? Is that just unviable?
I think it's the junction going on to the bypass.
Right.
You couldn't put a crossing patrol or anything there. I don't think that's feasible. It has to be something more
a permanent,
safe, a permanent thing. Aye. So certainly, I'll write to Nicole Patterson after this meeting, asking her to get on with it and get something done and get us some answers, and hopefully we'll have an answer by March. Right, thanks a lot.
Sorry, Chair. I had indicated I wanted to come in on this particular issue, if you don't mind.
Right, Jordan.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I appreciate what you just ended on. It sounds like a sensible solution. March is just too far away, though, to be honest. I wonder if we could perhaps, through you and Alison, agree to write to Nicole, but to ask her to either to pull together a meeting or to pull together an update whilst this work's underway for the elected members in the wards relevant in terms of wards 14 and 15, and you know, the parent voice group there as well, so that we can get an update sooner than March on what's happening. Either an initial meeting to understand where we're at, and then an agreement to have monthly updates thereafter until we get this moving, and then a further kind of formal update at the next reporting cycle for the community board. But to kind of put the update on hold until March seems too long away certainly for for those who've been waiting for such a long time.
Thanks, Jordan. Bob, you want to come in?
Just to say that what Jordan is saying is absolutely right. There's only one an issue for me about it. 2 meetings ago, it was decided to take this to the chief exec, and the chief exec, there would be an item on this board meeting. That's why there's now been 2 meetings, as this has been a standalone item. So the chief exec's got this, Jordan, and you can't go any higher than the chief exec at council level. So, and permeates down to officers. Just to confirm, Chair, once again, and John McLeish knows this because I fed the information. Transport Scotland and North Lanarkshire Council agreed everything on this. There was a plan put in place to deal with it, and something's happened. Now, if that's linked to pan-COVID or pre-COVID or whatever, then tell us about it. But for, we're in the dark. This had already been agreed, moved on, agreed. It's at the chief exec's level. So for the next meeting, I know, Alison, you're caught in this to a degree. At the next meeting, through yourself, Chair, we would seek an up-to-date urgent response for the chief exec, as per 3 meetings ago, about where we are with this. And let's get to the hub of this. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Bob. I totally agree with you. Jordan, I'll certainly try and arrange a meeting with the local members and Nicole for an update, possibly before, I don't know if it happened before the new year, but if not early in the new year. And I'll also contact the chief executive, as Bob says, it went to him, it should go back to him, and I'll ask him for an update as soon as possible for the members. And I'll also ask for the parent council to be involved in the meeting with the local members. Okay, so everybody agree? Right, thanks. Next item is
Chair.
Chair. Sorry.
Chair,
Jay.
can I come in on this? It's a different, it's previous minutes. It's on section 10, the local development programme. I don't know if you've got copies in front of you. I don't have one. I read it at the last minute. But it's a 10.2 local development programme, paragraph 3, and the subject is the Birkinshaw sports ban. It's something I asked for 6 months ago when the money was, the £50,000 being floated about for upgrading play parks. And then the Scottish Government come in with, I think, £320,000 solely for upgrading play parks. So I brought it up at the last meeting again, and I believe it was, I asked for the community champion to look into it, but it was overruled by Matt Costello. Seemed to see he would deal with it. So I don't know if he's dealt with it or not, but he's obviously spoke to someone. But I got an email recently saying that there's no more scope for refurbishing works at the play park and the Birkinshaw sports barn. Now, I've been attending these meetings for 8, 9, 10 years under the old local area partnership. This is the first thing I've asked for, and they're encouraging members of the community to put forward some suggestions. No reason for this, just get told there's no more scope for refurbishing works. Now, a very unusual request, Chair, maybe putting you in a position here. I'm now looking for a meeting with either the community champion or head of play parks. I don't know, I'm actually looking for your guidance, Chair. Now, I don't want to sit here tonight and explain all the details and my reasons for this community board. You have a heavy agenda there, and what I've got to say would take up 20, 25 minutes, and it might bore people who come from other areas and don't know the area of Birkinshaw Sports Barn and the Thornwood ward. So I'm seeking your guidance, Chair.
Okay, Bob, we'll try and set up a meeting with yourself and the local members and the officer responsible for it. We'll get that done.
Chair, I think Leanne's got her hand up.
It was just to say again that I've obviously now taken over from Matt Costello in the Bellshill area, but I'm happy to, obviously I've not been involved in that discussion to date, and I'm not aware of the reason. I'm sure there must have been a reason behind why that response was given. If you can just give me a chance to go and have a wee look into that, Hugh, and look into why that maybe that reason's been, why that response has been given. I know that sometimes with play parks there are kind of restrictions in terms of how far apart that they need to be, and you know there's a number of different, there's like maintenance issues, sometimes grounds not suitable, etc. So I don't know because I've not been involved to date, but I'm happy to be involved and pull together a meeting. We'll get Alison involved and others as required. So I'm happy to have that noted down as an action for me to go away and find out and have that discussion with Matt and others to look into the reason why that response was given, and to arrange a further meeting just to make sure that people are clear on why, or if there is anything that we can do moving forward, if not, you know, soon, maybe in a future year. But happy to take that on. And sorry, I don't have anything more detailed, but just to say I will be covering for Matt now, and I'll pick that up.
Is that okay, Bob?
It's you.
Chair, I'm happy with that response from Leanne, given that this is her first night in this position. My only add to it is that after the last meeting on the 7th of September, somebody did respond to me and they said they would get back to me, and it took 9-10 weeks for me to then call them back. Nothing had happened. They hadn't come out to look at the patch. So, Leanne, I'm perfectly happy. As long as you don't take 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks, I'll be happy.
I can guarantee I won't take that length of time. But see, if you could maybe forward me whatever response you've had, that would be helpful. I can put my email address in the chat bar.
I will do, Leanne. I'm not a great IT expert, but I'll certainly get someone, my granddaughter or something, to forward to you. Thanks for that. Thanks, Chair.
Right, yeah, thanks. Bob, you will want to come in?
Yeah, Chair, I want to come in another part of the minute, and it's very close to where she was speaking. It's under section 10.2. It's the fourth paragraph down. Now, I was hoping to put this question to Mark Costello, but obviously Leanne will need to pick up on it. Leanne, there was a question asked about the funding that was available for the Scottish Government, which is positive. And what we said at that time, the funding will be used in conjunction with the LDP funding, that was, Matt was aware of it, right? That's what's noted under 10.2. Leanne, my question is North Lanarkshire Council going to get any access to that funding? And if so, where is it going to be used? So that was my question. So you'll not know that tonight, Leanne, obviously. But if you can dig that out, it's under section 10.2 of the minutes, the fourth paragraph down. Thanks, Chair. I'll wait a response for Leanne on that one. Thanks very much.
Okay, Leanne, you'll be able to continue with that, aye? Great.
Yep.
Any other business from the business horizon? No, thanks. Move on. Item 4, the chair of the community board arrangements. Colin was unable to chair this meeting. He said he would, and obviously he can't, but perhaps he'll maybe be able to chair one in the future. So we're still looking for other people for the community to take on the role of chair on a kind of rotational basis. And if anybody's interested, let Leanne know and we can sort it out. It's we're trying to get members of the community more experience in committee meetings and things like that, and it really helps. So if anybody's interested, let Leanne know. The next one's general community board business. Alison, your next item 5, community champion.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose there's not a huge amount to update on today from my perspective. As you know, the role is just developing and meeting with my colleagues who are champions in other areas, and we are developing a system to make sure appropriate information is fed into the board, as well as our channels to feedback and concerns. I've also had the opportunity to meet with Leanne and Christine and the other community leads locally and the community network, just to really get a sense of what people are working on in terms of supporting the LOIP and the other issues which have been a primary concern in the area. I'm happy as part of that if other people want to meet with me. As Leanne said, I wouldn't want to pretend to you that I necessarily will be able to be involved in every issue, but what I can do along with Leanne and the leads from the communities team is ensure that the right connections are made to try and pick up on any issues, and also obviously to support in relation to the delivery of the LOIP for Bellshill. With my other job hat on, I have quite a key role in a couple of the North Lanarkshire partnerships, and for example in relation to children's services and community justice, as well as involvement in relation to tackling poverty groups. So I know, looking at the LOIP and looking at the work that the subgroups are doing, there's quite a lot of areas where I can certainly ensure that we are working as in as coordinated a way as possible, and make sure we're getting best value for Bellshill out of the wider work that is going on. But as part of my familiarisation, if there's any other groups or board members that want to specifically have a conversation with me, I'm happy to arrange that. I'll put my address in the chat as well. And I will continue to work with Leanne and the rest of the team in terms of taking forward the issues that the board are prioritising.
Thanks, Alison. Has anybody any questions for Alison? Bob, you get your hand up, or you? Hey, Huey, you get your hand up. You're on mute. You're muted, Huey.
Sorry, Chair, it's maybe up for the last time. No, I'll need to try and work out how to put my hand down here, thanks.
Right, no problem, Huey. Right, thanks for that, Alison. Item 6, Claire, Bellshill Gateway Cycling Hub Programme. Claire.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for inviting me along to the meeting to give an update. It's been fantastic that so many of you have come forward while we've been working on this project since June with your information and your ideas for how we can make the project a success. I'm going to do a really brief update just for the few of you I've not spoken to before, and explain where we're likely to go next with the project. If you'll bear with me, I will try and share a PowerPoint presentation just so you get to see some of the images from the development and design so far. So hopefully someone will be able to let me know if you can see my screen. Is that visible for you?
No, it's not come up, Claire.
Right. I'll have one more try, and if it doesn't work, I'll just speak to my notes, and we'll continue that way. It might just be a slow start. Is that coming up now?
That's it now, yeah.
Fantastic. So hopefully you'll all be able to see these fairly clearly if I put them on slideshow mode. So I wanted to cover both our Bellshill Entrance Velo Park and also just a very brief mention of our Green Growth Accelerator project as well, if you'll indulge me on that. We've been working on improvements as part of the Country Parks of the Future project, and our first project at that programme is the Bellshill Gateway project. It's key in terms of delivering two parts of the Strathclyde Country Park master plan: the entrance improvements at Bellshill, identifying the fact that Bellshill doesn't have a fantastic entrance to the country park, and that is restricting people's benefits they're getting, and also the Velo Park project, which is listed as one of the key projects in the master plan. So what we're working on at the moment is phase 1 of the Velo Park, which is creation of outdoor cycle facilities within the sort of side of Strathclyde Country Park that most serves Bellshill. and the wider communities around it, and also that new park entrance that will be created around the cycle facilities. So a lot of our time since July has been talking to people about the project, bringing in ideas from a list of different groups, both community members, elected officials, and also colleagues in different departments and organisations. So we've had a fantastic amount of input, and I do really appreciate that. It's enabled us to develop designs for the gateway. So the two maps you'll see on the screen show the wider gateway project with the hub site for the entrance from Bellshill shown in orange, the routes that connect it through the wider park shown on this large map, and then the smaller site giving an idea of the route for our nature trail, which has been one of the most popular projects that was put to the community in terms of the design for the gateway. So these are kind of mood board ideas boards that were developed as part of the consultation for natural play and the nature trail at Bellshill. Very much with a focus on making sure there's something for families that's free, easily accessible, and whilst a little bit educational, genuinely fun and engaging for people, and a real reason to come and visit the park. So these trails will involve everything from kind of active play, things that improve balance and strengthen skills, all the way through to properly informational things about nature, so ID guides for different tree species. So something for everyone of all ages there. And also the cycle facilities, we now have a fairly firmed up design for where they would go, which has involved quite a lot of changes in response to queries from residents, and also information from a topographical survey, which was done looking at the site. But what you'll see on the screen is the hub design, which shows pump track and associated jump line and beginner cycle area, some mountain bike skills loops for training, including a new trials area at the request of the community who were interested in doing the style of cycling that Danny McCaskill does, the kind of stunt cycling. So an area has been included for that. Retaining the sledging area that's really popular with the wider local community, and enhancing the environment by in the summer leaving that as a wildflower meadow, so it will be seeded with a high diversity species mix to attract wildlife and create really good visual interest. Our car park proposed location has moved nearer to the main road, and we're including space for a community garden project that may be developed, something that will probably take a little bit of extra time, but would be a great way of encouraging a whole new user group to come to the country park and to be actively engaged in it. Another addition to the project since I last spoke to several of you has been the learn to ride areas. So the right hand side of my screen shows two additional locations within Strathclyde Country Park where we'll be installing learn to ride facilities. So spaces for groups of children and adults, if they don't yet ride a bike, to safely learn road skills, which will enable them to go out on the wider road network and safely cycle using the active travel network. So these will be mini road setups that will allow them to practice skills, and they'll be located next to the Waterport Centre, where we already have bike hire facilities that can be used, and also at the foreshore area, which already has a car park. And that in that area, we hope that will be a real encouragement for families to come at the weekend, and when one child is learning how to ride a bike, the other one will have some play facilities to keep them engaged. And I think that's really important, not just for fitness for children, but also very much for road safety as well. So we're delighted that we've managed to secure funding for this part of the project, and there are two community cycle groups and also outdoor activities from within North Lanarkshire Council who are going to be working on providing group activities at these sites when they're built. So as well as them, we're working on the wider connections throughout the site. So this map shows the entirety of Strathclyde Country Park, and that all essential link from the top here at the Bellshill Gateway all the way through, particularly the natural parts of the site and the key green link cycleway that will bring people down and enable them to use the waterside facilities at Strathclyde Lock. It's really key for us that we also ensure that the active travel strategy is linked into this. So the connections that can be made both from Bellshill Station and Motherwell Station to the Bellshill Gateway, something we're exploring with the active travel team. They do have several vacancies within their team at the moment, and they've explained that they probably won't be able to work on this as soon as we will be installing the facilities, but it's just a way in which we can always keep adding to the project. So once we have core facilities in place, we'll be able to work on those connections, and also hopefully connections to the Orbiston Community Hub when the location for that is absolutely finalised, looking at safe routes for children to get between that school hub site and the cycle facilities so they can make best use of them. The funding for this project is at the moment coming from the place-based investment programme, which is funding both half of the Gateway project, but also all of the Learn to Ride facilities that we've added to the project. The remainder of the funding is currently coming from our core Country Parks for the Future programme, which is our 5-year capital allocation for funding works throughout all of the parks. And we've recently been awarded £17,500 of Scotland Loves Local funding, specifically to enable lighting of the pump track so that it can be used in winter evenings and extend the benefit the community get from that. We're still waiting to hear from Sport Scotland whether their Cycle Facilities Fund will be providing the remaining £100,000 that we need to fulfil all of the design, but we're hoping to hear about that soon. I wish I could announce good news tonight, but we're still waiting for it. But contracts are going to be awarded from this month through till February next year, with the intention that the facilities will be built over the summer, probably with the last pieces going into place in September 2022. So within the next year, there'll be a real change in the country park in the Bellshill area. Hopefully a really engaging and interesting place for people to visit, encouraging much more healthy lifestyles. So I hope, Chair, you wouldn't mind if I would carry on with a couple of slides just explaining about another new project. Would that be okay?
Yes, no problem, ma'am.
Fantastic, just because it's new news. So we're delighted that we've been accepted as one of only 5 pilot projects in Scotland for accelerating green growth. It's a series of funding and also technical specialty advice that's been given to local authority projects looking to develop net zero solutions. So our project again is in Strathclyde Country Park. It centres around the water sports centre and the loch. And crucially, we're looking to utilise the loch, which has a high latent heat potential. I'm not the world's best engineer, so I try my best to explain all of this, but basically we're taking heat from that loch, which doesn't sound like it's very hot, particularly if you dipped your toe in it ever, but it does have 6.6 megawatts of latent heat potential, and we'll be feeding that into the water sports centre, which currently has a fairly high emissions rating. It's a 1970s building, not very well insulated, and improvements can be made to that to really reduce the energy demand of the building and feed the heat from the loch into that to feed it in a low energy way. The pump that is used to accelerate the heat from the water in the loch to make it up to sort of central heating temperature requires electricity. So we'll also be adding to the site a solar canopy, which will sit over one of the car parks, and that will allow us to make sure that the EV charging points for electric vehicles are also net zero. So a really good sort of tourism promotion angle for Strathclyde Country Park because of its location on the motorway network, and hopefully also a boost for local people who are slowly moving towards electric cars, something that will happen over the next few decades. So that part of the project's really good, but we're also hoping to reduce our use of temporary buildings like porta cabins, and also the amount of emissions coming from school trips travelling outside North Lanarkshire to take part in activities, and co-locate all of that in a extended water sports centre building, so potentially a new floor on that building, and that will allow us to reduce emissions across a whole range of different council functions, not just the water sports building itself. So I explained that we're part of a pilot project. That's the first stage of it that we're writing a business case for. But our ambition long term beyond this is to make sure that we take that latent heat potential and also pump it out into the wider community so it can feed our hubs and our schools, so that energy for them would also be net zero. So that's a very big long-term ambition. But in the short term, we've got a fantastic opportunity to work in an externally funded way, so none of our core budget is paying for the work we're doing between now and March, looking at that business case. And the key things we're looking at within that are, can we make the water sports centre more efficient? Can we make it multi-use so it meets all those new modern needs? Will we manage to do this within budget, because the maximum value of the main grant we'd be applying for this is £10 million, which if you're like me, sounds like a terrifyingly large amount of money, but it doesn't go far when you're doing a big project. And also whether or not we can extend that heat network out into the local community at a later stage and make sure that we're having green efficient energy that supplies the local community, helping with things like fuel poverty, and making sure we've got a reliable green source of energy for our communities. So thank you very much for allowing me to go on a little bit longer than originally intended, but we're very excited about the new project and hoping that everyone else will be too.
Thanks for that, Claire. An excellent presentation. Would it be possible if we could have a copy of the presentation sent to us all?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, definitely. I can share that through the minutes. I'll make sure it gets to the right people to get emailed around to everyone. So I'm happy to answer any questions via email when people think of them as well, if that's possible.
One of the questions was, will there be toilet facilities?
No, not as part of this stage of the project, but the long-term ambition is to make sure that we can do that in the future. So right at the beginning of my presentation, I talked about the Velo Park proposals. So we're only able to deliver stage 1 of them at the moment with current funding, but the Velo Park itself is a really ambitious project to create a building up at that site rather than just the outdoor cycle facilities. So that'd be linked to a cafe and maybe bike repair run by local community groups who are interested in doing that. If we can get that in place, the cafe enables the toilets. So it really needs a permanent staffing function to keep them clean and in good condition. So until we can get the cafe, unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to get toilets as well.
Thanks, Claire. Anybody any questions? Bob?
It's not a question, Claire, it's just a comment. It was me that asked if we could get the slides, the copy sent to us, but even the extended presentation you done, if we could get a copy of that too, because it's exciting times. I just want to say that's, you know, sometimes we come along to meetings and sometimes we see the same thing and we get disappointed sometimes. This looks really, really terrific. And I think we can all look forward to a major change down at the park. And within the next 3 years, there's going to be a massive change by the sound of it. So just to say, Claire, well done to you and all the team. Congratulations. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the team. They've been working very hard on it before I was even in post. So I'll make sure that they get your congratulations and thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else, any questions or comments?
Hugh Breen, can I come in, Chair?
Hugh, right, come in, Hugh.
Aye, thanks, Chair. That's absolutely brilliant news, Claire. I got a wee bit lost at the end there. You mentioned all the figures at the beginning, it seemed quite reasonable. But did you mention at the end there it all depends on a 100 million grant? If that is the case, where does that grant come from?
I'm sorry, I probably rushed through that a little bit here. And the key thing is that we'd be applying for £10 million worth of money to allow just that green growth accelerator, so the energy project, to take place. The cycle project, we have 9/10 of the funding in place for that, and it will definitely go ahead. It's just whether or not we can do some of the fantastic extra bits of it depend on Sport Scotland deciding on a funding application we put in at the end of September. So we're just waiting for a decision on them, but that project is definitely going to take place at some scale. And the Green Growth Accelerator project, we currently have £120,000 worth of pilot project funding, which allows us to pay for the architectural and energy work we need to create a business case. If that business case is successful and the council decided they wanted to go ahead with the project, then we'd be applying for £10 million worth of money from the Scottish Government to enable us to build it. So it's again a 2-stage process. So at the moment we're doing research, but that research is being funded by the Scottish Government to allow us to take it forward.
Sounds great. I just hope there's a wee bench for me to sit on.
Thanks, you. Angela, you want to come in?
Yeah, the whole thing's wonderful, but the bit that really appeals to me, of course, is the science part. And it is a kind of dog topic, latent heat. And it would be wonderful if you could really include the schools and even get them involved. If it does go ahead, get them involved with groups doing projects or whatever, because it's something that actually brings it to life and it's on their doorstep. And, you know, it would make it easier for staff to teach in the future, particularly if something like that went ahead. but delighted you're doing so well. Thanks, Claire.
I think that's a really excellent point, Angela. And we had a chat to the youth climate ambassadors last week about this project. And they were so enthusiastic about it and very keen to help us do some sort of display in the Water Sports Centre so that educational groups coming to visit could find out more about green energy solutions and climate change. And I think their voices will be really important in making sure we get the tone of that information right, because it is a difficult topic to explain. Even if you are a great engineer, it's not easy to make it engaging. So we'll definitely be taking up their offer of help for that, and hopefully involving some of the local schools as well.
Thanks. Anybody else like to come in? No. Well, thanks for that, Claire. I look forward to your update in March, especially as I stay right in the doorstep of it, so I can actually watch it happening as we go along. My son's back door looks onto where the developer's going to be, so I'll see it going on, and hopefully by March we'll have a lot of improvements. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
The next item, community partnership updates, board development sessions. Leanne.
Thanks, Chair. Christine's just going to share a couple of slides. I'm just going to literally 3 slides, maybe 4, but just to kind of take you through where we're at with the, and just to show you an example of kind of where we're at with the community board development programme. It does say in the agenda community board development sessions, but it's actually more of a programme. So Christine, if you could just move straight on to the second slide, that would be great. So community board members, you'll be aware that there's been work in the background to develop a development programme for community board members to support their participation in the community boards. You'll know that there's been updates at previous meetings around work that we have done with the Council's Talent and Organisational Development, or TOD team, to undertake a training needs analysis with community board members across North Lanarkshire, and I believe feedback was given at the last meeting in terms of the key topic areas that had been identified through that. So in the background, myself and Matt Costello have been doing some work with the Talent and Organisational Development team to initially kind of pulled together and develop an online hub on Learn NL, which is the council's kind of learning platform. And the idea is that this will be a development hub, and it will bring together a number of training resources for addressing the key topic areas that came out as in terms of the training needs analysis for the community boards. The idea is that the resources will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that they'll be accessible from any device and delivered in a blended format. So what will happen is there'll be the resources, so it might be, it could be a presentation, it could be a briefing note, it could be links to information, it could be an online training course, but that information will all be available at all times so that people can access them as and when it suits them. If members don't already have login credentials for Learn NL, we'll make sure that those are provided. And moving forward, we will make sure that virtual introductory sessions take place to help the community board members to navigate the hub initially. Next slide, Christine. So this is just starting to show you what the hub's starting to look like online. So there are the community board members, it will be the community board development programme in the kind of hub area will be a designated area on the Learn NL platform, which community board members will have access to, and the tiles that you can see there in front of you, they align to the subjects that were identified through the training needs analysis. So if you were to click on one of those kind of tiles, it would take you into the resources for that subject. And as I say, that could initially, it's probably going to be quite a lot of information that's on there, and we've already assigned subject area specialists to help the TOD team to work up the detail of what information needs to be under each of the headings. But as we progress and as it develops and it's tested, it'll be a much more kind of dynamic model where you'll have maybe online training courses. We might agree that the best way to deliver certain elements of it might be to do face-to-face when we're allowed to eventually, or to do an online training session. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So next slide, Christine. So the idea again is that once you go into the tiles, that kind of shows you what it'll look like, the kind of subtiles, if you like, so it'll go into the different kind of components, the different areas of that particular topic. The content will be accessible and flexible. So the idea is that we want it to be available like all the time, so that, you know, if you work or whatever, you don't need to come on and attend a training course at a certain time, although that might happen on certain occasions. You're able to access the information as and when it suits you. The idea as well is that the information will be flexible, that we'll be able to change it, because obviously sometimes legislation changes, sometimes the focus for a community board might change slightly, or an issue might come up. So we want to be able to really be able to change the information on there to suit the kind of any given time. And also we want to be able to add information, obviously, if maybe something's a bit more topical or current. We also want to be able to make sure that the resources can be tailored. So again, you know, it's not a one size fits all. So we might have information that's sitting there for everybody to access, but then one community board might ask for information on a particular topic. So it's about tailoring it to the needs of the community boards as we move forward. And the next slide, Christine. So in terms of the development of the programme, the next stage is that we're continuing to develop the content and the background with the TOD team. Early next year, we'll be looking to test the development hub. So we'll be hoping that some of the community board members will come forward and volunteer to help to test the site, so that we can just make sure that any final changes can be made, make sure that it's as accessible as possible. Feedback will be taken and any amendments will then be made, and we are scheduled to launch the hub from April next year. That's all I really had to say, and it was just to really provide you with a very brief update on the work that's been happening in the background to develop this hub in response to the training needs analysis, and just recognising that, you know, that there are different ways that we may be able to deliver this approach, and there isn't a one size fits all. But I'm happy to take any comments or questions. Chair, thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Any questions for Leanne? No. Thanks for that, Leanne. That was good. The next item is the local development programme. Leanne, again, you're on. Yes,
I'll be quick because I don't want to be hogging the meeting. I'll let the community speak. So as you'll be aware, this is the kind of standing agenda item on the community board meeting around LDP. The report just provides an update on progress with the LDP projects as outlined in the appendices. Board members will recall that at the last cycle, a number of projects were approved in principle to be prioritised based on budget availability, feasibility and evidence of local support and need. And as you can see from the detail in Appendix 2, you can see in there how projects have started to be categorised in terms of priority for delivery. There are just a couple of projects in Appendix 2 that I would want to draw your attention to that have been added. So the first one is under the CCTV budget. I've received an update that there is potential to, or there are plans to utilise around £20,000 of that budget to install the CCTV at Burnhead Street in View Park, and that's to assist with some of may assist with some of the challenges that I believe have been experienced in that area around youth disorder in recent times. So it was just to highlight that to you in terms of use of the CCTV budget. The other ones that I wanted to highlight to you for approval were there's a community safety project being added for approval, and that's to address wheelie bin security to prevent the theft of wheelie bins and some of the issues associated with that, and that'll be done in conjunction with community planning partners, in particular Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and Police Scotland, and that's £2,000, so we're seeking approval for that tonight. And also the potential to look at a mugga in the Rosevale Crescent area. So we're looking for funds to the value of £65,000, and we're seeking approval for that tonight, subject to further consultation with the community and further work around feasibility. So that's the projects that we wanted to highlight to you tonight. Other than that, it was just to highlight to you that Appendix 3 shows what the consultation letter looks like, and that's now been updated to use a QR code, which is getting used more kind of often now. And consultations are also information is also available in hard copy if requested. As always, the communities are encouraged to continue to highlight projects to myself, Christine, or any member of the local team. and any project ideas that you have, you know, the team would be able to advise whether it kind of fits with the criteria and talk you through the process. And then there's a forum that would be filled in after that kind of early discussion. And if not, the team can always advise if there's other funding available, or if we would be able to support you to access funding from elsewhere. So we would just always encourage you to talk to us about project ideas. That's all I wanted to say, and happy again, as always, to take any comments or questions. And I will get to know all the projects and all the Bellshill projects, as well as I did in the other areas that I covered eventually. I'm working through it.
Thanks, Leanne. Any questions for Leanne? Any comments? No, do we agree?
Chair, Bob
Sorry,
here,
Chair.
I've got a question on there.
Oh, right, Bob.
I'd actually been typing the question on as Leanne was speaking about Appendix 2, and I'm delighted that she's mentioned about the possibility of the CCTV in the Juniper Road, Bunhead area, because I know that the police and the fire and the community team, the board team, have been down there. The question for Leanne is about the timing, Leanne. This needs to happen like quite quickly. What's the plan? Because there's £25,000 as a budget, and I know there's a demand on CCTV, Leanne, I know that. But what's the likelihood of this progressing on quickly?
That's a project that I would imagine will progress quite quickly, because the budget's there, and the kind of work to look at the quotes and to look at what's involved has already started. I can't give you an exact date or anything, but I can certainly come back to you with that. But I would say it'll progress fairly quickly. But I'll certainly come back to you with more specific detail when I go and look into it. But I know it's an imminent one.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks for that, Chair. Thank you.
Any other questions for Leanne on this?
Chair, there's another comment on there from Dennis O'Keefe. I think we've bypassed.
Oh, I thought he'd be just giving us his email address. Dennis, you want to come in? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I was actually just putting in my email address for correspondence.
Right, okay, thanks.
So, thank you.
So do we agree the recommendations for Leanne to accept the projects?
Agreed.
Great, thank you. The next is the local outcome improvement plan. That's Christine.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully I'll not take too much of your time up. Just a quick update. The report was circulated with the papers for the meeting, so I'm not going to go into that in any great detail. As you know, the LOIP was developed following extensive community stakeholder engagement and dialogue with key partners in the Bellshill area. The Bellshill LOIP is now being published on the North Lanarkshire Council website, so if anybody wants to see that, but we also circulated it to community board members, so you should all have that. If you don't have, please let me know. Let me know through Community Matters, and we'll make sure that that's been sent out to you. Now that the LOIPs have been published, our focus is now on the implementation of the plans. There's a move to we're moving to the action stage, and that needs ongoing collaboration between local communities and the community planning partners, and we're seeing a good amount of that within the Bellshill area. So thanks to all the people who have contributed so far, but there's still room and still scope for other people to be involved. If you've not kind of linked into that process so far, certainly the subgroups are now taking place, and they're meeting on a regular basis. If you're interested in being involved, let myself know, or Kinwa, who's our member on the call, but also our partners in Van El, Sharon and Francis, who's on the call as well from NHS. As I said, the subgroups are already taking place, and we sent an update, as I said, with the papers for the meetings. We're targeting approaches and interventions towards communities known to experience higher levels of inequality. There's some cross-cutting themes have been identified through the kind of LOIP process. Poverty, mental health, digital inclusion and young people have kind of come through strongly. And within the Bellshill area, poverty and mental health certainly came through loud and clear, as did community safety. So there's a number of things in there that we're looking to take forward. In terms of monitoring of the LOIP, we're looking to provide local updates at board cycles, so we will always send out information in advance of the board meetings with the papers. There'll be 6 monthly tracking progress reports. We will have an annual report that will be produced and published online. And then there will be a formal review of the process every 2 years. So that's to kind of let you know what the kind of process moving forward. The next steps will be that we will feed back to earlier contributors. So a number of people around this table, but also wider, were involved in listening events, focus groups and survey work at the beginning of the process, and we'll look to share that information with those, the LOICs with them to enable them to realise how their contributions have informed the plans. And people who are still around the table at the moment will start to see how things are progressing in terms of the actions and how we're taking things forward. And interestingly, just as Leanne was saying there, in terms of the kind of wheelie bin, the kind of locks and things like that, that's something that's come through the community safety subgroup, and we can start to see things starting to progress in that way as well. That's all I'm going to say, Chair. But we have, as I mentioned, we've got Kinwal Lee on the call. Mark Howard's not here, unfortunately, but Francis Mackay and Sharon Bissett are all part of the support to the subgroups. So if there's any questions, either of us will be able to kind of answer any questions that people might want to ask. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Any questions to Christine on that? No. No. Thanks for that report, Christine. The next one is budget listing events. See you again, Christine.
It is. Thanks, Chair. Just again, a quick update about the kind of budget listening event that took place in Bellshill on the 25th of October. Again, a short summary of the report was circulated in advance of the meeting with the papers. The listening event in Bellshill was part of a wider budget engagement process. 119 people participated across the 9 board areas. 68 young people were targeted as well, and there was about 500 people completed online surveys. So it was very much a part of that process. In terms of the kind of questions that were asked, it was based on 4 questions. What council services people valued the most? And in Bellshill, the kind of things that came through that were support to young people engaging in antisocial behaviour, environmental services like bins, rubbish collection, uplifts, parks and road maintenance come through that. Services for older people, for example, lunch clubs were raised, and also leisure services. There was also specifically things raised about kind of CLD support to vulnerable young people. So that was a wee taste of some of the issues that kind of came out within that discussion. In terms of service delivery priorities, those at the meeting identified things like litter problems in parks, ongoing maintenance of local parks and roads. How can communities work with public services to shape and support delivery of services important to local people? And what was raised there was in terms of local groups and organisation, things like the local groups are already doing, like tidying, litter picking, activities that people are doing locally that contributes and supports the work of the council. Thorneywood community volunteered for wider road and pavement gritting. So local community groups offering their services to be more involved in local processes. It was also identified that better cooperation between the council and community groups to fill gaps in services due to budget cuts would be helpful. With also things like a need for Moss Hill Credit Union to work together with financial inclusion team and partners to support people under financial stress. So there was particular things raised within that as well. Other points that were raised included where savings can be made, environmental maintenance work could be outsourced to private companies. That was a suggestion that was made. The next steps for that is that the report will be prepared with all the responses that were provided from all of the board areas, and these will go to the corporate leadership team and forwarded to elected members to assist them with their budget decision-making processes. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Anybody any questions to Christine on that?
Hugh Breen, Chair, just a comment.
Sure, Hugh, on you go.
I happened to attend that meeting. As Christine said, it wasn't very well attended. But Chair, it's very difficult to suggest improvements or anything else that you're looking for when you've got 2 governments that are cutting money year on year. You know, it's not an easy thing. You know, I could ask for a lot of things, but the money's not there. And just for Councillor Linden's benefit, I did mention 2 governments. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Hugh. We know the cuts are coming in quite hard, but we'll have to do what we can to make sure we've got everything that we can do everything that we can do. Anybody else any questions for Christine?
Chair, Frances Mackay from NHS. Sorry, I'm trying to put my video on, but I don't know how to do it.
Right. Francis, when you go.
It's coming on. Yeah, it was just obviously Mark Howard's not here tonight, and we had a discussion for me to come on here. Other points and suggestions raised, it just says here where savings can be made environmental maintenance work. Mark had actually pointed out that at the community listening event, it was online only, which means that means that not everybody's fully engaged, and in that way it's unequal, and he would like those points put into the notes, please.
Okay. We do that, Leanne, aye? Christina, sorry.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, we can look at that. Just a wee quick reminder though that the consultation was about community groups and organisations putting forward their views, and there will be opportunities obviously for partners to add their kind of suggestions and things at a different time. But we can certainly take that on board. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Francis. Anybody else?
Chair, if you don't mind, can I just make a comment there about the online nature? Obviously, as a council, we're still being, well, obviously things have changed again with the new variant, but we're still being kind of discouraged from holding kind of sessions or events on any kind of scale. So we were a wee bit restricted to online in that particular case. But what I would say is there was certainly an effort through our kind of partner agencies and through the council services that work with maybe more vulnerable people to encourage and support them to be able to go on and use the online service. So while people maybe didn't necessarily come along to the sessions, there was, you know, an opportunity for services to either support people one-to-one to complete online, or to hold kind of group work sessions as the youth work team did with some of the young people. So just to say that there, you know, while it wasn't ideal, it was just the circumstances that we found ourselves in, and we would hope to move to be able to deliver in a more kind of hybrid model as we move forward.
Thanks, Leanne. I agree with you that these meetings aren't ideal, but at the moment we have to stick with them. Anybody else, anything else on that? No, thanks. Budget listening events feedback. Christine, to you again.
Right. Thanks, Chair. Again, the briefing paper on PB was circulated in advance of the meeting, so hopefully you've all managed to have a copy of that and had a chance to read it. But just a quick update on that. Following approval of mainstream PB at Council Committee, we now require to consider how PB will best work locally. So we're looking to establish a suitable task reference group to progress this. An establishment and operation of the group would be supported through the community board development sessions that Leanne had kind of mentioned earlier. PB is about local people having direct say in how public money is spent. Community boards will direct PB delivery funded by LDP, the Local Development Programme budget. PB is a mechanism or a way of delivering projects with greater local input, and is not a separate resource, so it will come through the LDP process, is not separate funding, as I mentioned. PB can involve public votes on projects, but also includes ongoing engagement with community boards and budget decisions. Certain projects such as parking to relieve congestion or CCDV that we've heard about earlier in relation to addressing community safety concerns will continue to be delivered through existing community board processes. They'll not be subject to PB processes. And the reason for that is that LDP can continue to proactively target issues within communities as they arise. So that's really, really important that we're able to do that. Where an existing subgroup is used to take PB forward, there will be a requirement that a council officer is a member of the group to provide guidance and advice on the PB process and ensure appropriate financial governance is in place. The Bellshill board are asked to consider the briefing paper that was circulated and approve the establishment of a PB tasker reference group, so that we can start to look at how we take PB processes forward within the Bellshill area. And that's all I have to say, Chair. Thanks very much. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Christine on that? Anybody? No. Thanks again. Next is
Thanks, Chair.
Participatory budgeting. Christine again.
Chair, that was the one I just did there. It was the PB one. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Right, we'll move on to item 8, petitions. There's no petitions put forward for this meeting. Okay. Item 9, community matters. Input from local community groups. What have we got in this one?
Chair, that's just an opportunity for any community groups to give us an update on what they're doing locally. If there's anything that they want to raise and tell us about, it's a great opportunity for people to just tell us that.
Chair, can I come in?
Patricia, you want in first? Patricia?
If that's okay, if you don't mind, Hugh, we've been doing the winter coat appeal in Thornawood, and we've been collaborating with the Salvation Army and local health visitors and so on, Francis Mackay as well. So we've been really busy at that, providing quite a good service, I must say. And people don't need a referral. They've been coming in and they can take a quote for a child or an adult. They can either donate or just take, and there's no questions asked. And we're trying to promote it as being like a recycle project rather than you're getting a quote because you maybe can't afford one, just to reduce stigma. So that's been quite a big project that we've been doing locally.
Thanks, Patricia. Well done. Well done for that. Hugh, you want to come in?
No, Chair, I was just going to say that the best person to get in here is Patricia Warren. I'm glad she's came in. But while I'm on, and I hope Quinn Laz listening, if that's how I pronounced it right, I hope he gets some of the resilience packs to this Thornawood community group. I think they're desperate to get rid of something for the winter coming in. And I believe the Thornawood Community Council have got some facilities that they can store them. So I want you to help them out, Ken. Thanks.
Thanks, Hugh. Anybody else? No. Thanks. Input from planning partners. Strathclyde Fire. Somebody there for the Strathclyde Fire and Rescue? No?
Yes, Chair, I'm here. It's Craig Campbell.
Right, you want to say a wee?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Apologies, I'm not going to have my camera on. I'm experiencing some connection issues just now. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to review the update paper which I prepared and submitted into the board. So regular members will note that there's a slight change to the format of this report from recent submissions, and that's in response to feedback received that it would be more desirable to move away from a data-led performance report onto a more focused input relating to SFRS activity in the area, which I'm going to talk about tonight. So since the last community board, there's been a significant amount of community safety engagement activity carried out by the crews across the 5 watches from Bellshill Fire Station. This is fully detailed within the report, and as you can see, there's been a concerted proactive effort alongside partners to engage meaningfully, particularly with children and youth in schools at all levels in the run-up to bonfire night this year. So as a result of that, we experienced a much quieter bonfire night across the 3 wards than that of previous years, with a reduction in reported incidents from 20 down to 10. There continues a key focus on secondary bin fires also, as mentioned as part of the LOIP, and that's also in part of the, and records of these incidents are now also down from 50% on like from the period of 2021. On the 30th of November, I attended a site meeting with partners, a number of whom are at the board today, at the board this evening, down to Burnhead Street, where we held a discussion with elected members and local members of the community on recent antisocial behaviour down in that area, deliberate fire setting, and I've taken away a number of actions for the fire service to assist in reducing incidents of this nature in the area. So that's my brief update, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions anybody may have, either on what I've said tonight or on any of the content on the report that I've submitted. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. Any questions to Craig? No, your report was quite good, Craig, so I've got one.
Sorry, thanks, Jim. Yeah, just briefly, Craig, I mean, at the end of your report, you cite the change in legislation with regards to smoke alarms. I think this is certainly something that, as a board, we need to be aware of. There's the February 2022 date that's currently still in place. And this is going to create a significant challenge for many people. I know that it's a fairly costly exercise for owner-occupiers. I think there's a concern as well around some landlords, whether or not they will have the provision in place by the statutory time frame that's been set out. So I suppose it's just how, as you know, the fire service and ultimately as a board and a council, we think we're going to be able to communicate this more effectively. And obviously there's a role for the government there as well. But I think it is just something to flag, because I think it's kind of creeping up on people, and they maybe don't realise that these changes are coming into effect.
Yeah, absolutely, Frank. I do agree in that there is a part for us all to play, both Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and the government. Bearing in mind it is Scottish Government legislation that's been brought in, the fire service are reacting to it, just as everyone else is. So at the moment, but we're producing an elected members briefing, so that would kind of feed into the communication part of it as well, whereby we will state our position and how we can assist. Primarily who we're going to be able to assist though are owner-occupiers. Anyone that's tenanted either via private means or through local authorities and housing associations. The responsibility for that lies squarely with any landlords, both private and otherwise. Where there are owner-occupiers who would like assistance, then we're more than happy to come out, arrange a home fire safety visit, and then we have a risk rating forms that we'll put the householders through, and then we'll be able to advise them following outcome of that risk assessment whether or not they're eligible for us to fit out the interlinked smoke alarms. However, in the meantime, it won't meet the standards come February 2022, but we will continue to provide the standalone single point smoke detectors if required, which do offer that level of protection, which perhaps the interlinked smoke alarms don't. But I'm sure everyone can understand that there's a kind of finite amount of resource out there, particularly for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service to provide, and it is actually, the onus is really on the owner-occupiers to kind of look at that. But I absolutely get the communication aspect of it as well, and we all have a part to play in that. And then hopefully pretty soon we'll have that elected members brief out, and we'll engage on all platforms to make sure everybody's aware of the responsibilities and what that new legislation is going to look like come February 2022.
Thanks, Craig. Alison, you want to come in?
Thanks, Peter. It was just with another piece of information, and it's certainly something we can circulate, but my understanding is that there is some national funding which is being distributed via Care and Repair. Now, we don't have Care and Repair in North Lanarkshire anymore, it's in South, but the funding is to cover both North and South Lanarkshire, as far as I understand it, and it does mean that in certain circumstances, depending on somebody's council tax band, that they may be eligible for support with this, but only for those in band C or below. So it's certainly information that I can share or could be added to a wider information that's been circulated about that.
Thanks, Alison. Hugh?
Hi, Chair. In response to the minutes that we got, just to the fire officer there, I booked a home visit today, but unfortunately it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks, because obviously some people are beginning to learn about it now and beginning to panic. So it'll be the middle of February before hopefully I get a visit. They did say it might be quicker, but the actual response for the Scottish Government has been horrendous. I mean, it costs roughly, as far as I'm aware, £220 to £250. Very little support for the Scottish Government. You really have to be on the breadline to get any financial support. This is going to be, in my opinion, every 10 people I speak to, 9 of them don't know what I'm talking about. And this is the 6th of December. And we've just to find £220, £250 for anywhere. Very badly handled, and I think it'll cause a major problem. And as far as I'm aware, maybe the officer will confirm this, but if I don't get this done for the end of February, I think my home insurance will be void. I'm not certain of that, but I believe that could happen. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Dennis, you want in?
Yeah, thanks very much.
You went mute, Dennis, I think.
Sorry, thanks very much. I've been doing a couple of presentations to some of our older people's groups, and as I understand it, you have to be an owner occupier. This is the criteria. Council tax band A to C, and I believe you may have to be in receipt of some pension credits or benefits, possibly. So there's a wee bit of criteria. The other thing that I would say just there, in response to Hughie as well, is I remember this about a year ago, hearing this and thinking they've not given us much time, and so really it's been a year on for then. They've given us a year. Again, depends how quickly people pick it up. But can I come back about some the care and repair? I've been in touch with Care and Repair South Lanarkshire, and they told me that they had received some funding from Care and Repair Scotland. What they've just did in November is to change their constitution. They've amended their constitution so that they can operate in both North and South Lanarkshire. And I think the next step to that is that they then approach NLC for permission to operate in North Lanarkshire. So it seems that they're coming back, certainly Care and Repair. And I've spoken to Jamie Burgess at Care and Repair, and so they have changed their AGM. They've changed their constitution to operate pan Lanarkshire. So it's a case of when they'll be allowed to do that. But it's my understanding is the criteria is council tax band A to C, owner occupier, and in receipt of some benefits. Could you clarify at all, Craig?
Yeah, so those are certainly some of the aspects of it, but we use it from our side, from the Fire and Rescue Service, there's a risk element to it as well.
Yeah.
So there'll be a risk rating applied to the householders, and that would be conducted by one of the officers that would come out and carry out a home fire safety visit. So that kind of really needs to be done in person. So it's not primarily about the means that people may have. It's more about the risk that these people have in their homes. That's perhaps the biggest kind of aspect of how it will play into whether or not we fit these interlinked smoke detectors. But I would obviously these are the forums where we need to discuss it. And if it's live streamed or whatever, we can, anyone who wants to ask any questions at all. I mean, we have been inundated with requests, but certainly phone a local fire station, and they might be able to give you any kind of information you require, either whether that's pointing towards Scottish Government website, which has a kind of full outline how this legislation is going to play out, or whether it's bespoke fire safety advice for themselves, or whether or not they are actually eligible for these interlinked smoke detectors. But I would suggest that the first point of contact for anyone that's got any questions would be to the fire stations, the local fire station. Thanks.
I can back in there and just say I've actually referred quite a few people, and it's been, by and large, it's been a positive response in line with what Craig has just stated.
Yeah, and I'll certainly say to obviously Bellshill Fire Station being my station, I'll keep in contact with the watch commanders and the crew commanders in there as well, just to kind of make sure everyone's standardising in their approach and how we're looking at this. And then again, if there's any difficulties, we might look at kind of creating a frequently asked questions, etc., that we can perhaps feed into the board for the next one as well. Although that might be kind of cutting it fine for the February deadline, but it's just what we need to do. We just try and get the word out there as much as we possibly can, and it's going to be a team effort. Thanks.
Thanks. Angela, you want to come in?
It might well be a year, as Dennis said, but remember with several months of lockdown in among that, and people maybe due to that aren't really thinking straight. But regarding the briefing, Marty's briefing has been sent out by Andrew Rose this afternoon to all elected members.
Excellent.
So we will all have a copy of that. And I'd like to thank Craig and the station for encouraging some of our young people. I understand you're having some greenhouses and working with some young people down at the fire station, so well done.
Yeah, we're looking at that as well. Looking at that potentially at the new year to perhaps create a community garden down there as well, greenhouses, and looking at the kind of mental health aspect of it, community safety aspect, antisocial behaviour. So that's possibly going to be coming in the new year. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, Craig. Angela. I think as well, one of the things that possibly the police should be watch for is the scammers. You know, the people that are going to chap doors and tell the old folk we'll put it in for you for £100 or whatever. You know, I think that'll be on the uprise.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. I think it's something which we probably need to be aware of as well, that there are going to be a lot of opportunistic people, shall we say, who are looking to kind of climb onto this, and I think that's why we need to make sure that the Scottish Government website is probably the first port of call, and then we can look at kind of accredited people, and we can look at the standards, the kind of standards which are against the fitting of these smoke alarms as well, and make sure that people are aware of what they are. And then obviously if there's any trades people or contractors coming into their properties, that they're well informed as to what's actually required of them as well. So that's something we need to look at as well.
Right. Thanks, Craig. Anybody else any questions to Craig? No. Thanks for that, Craig. The next one's police. Who have we got for the police?
We were expecting PC McCluskey, but I can't see him on the call, Chair.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll just move on. NHSL. Who's doing that one?
Don't know if Francis.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I don't know how to put my hand up on this thing either. Yeah, I'll just be brief. Obviously, Christine's just updated you on the poverty and the mental health VoIP information. I would just say that there's 4 of us on that group. There's myself, Mark, Julie Redden, who's on the call, and Laura Campbell, who's also on the call. They're on both groups, the poverty and the mental health. So I'm putting out an appeal to other people who would like to come along and join in with the group, if they could possibly. Just to give you a wee bit of update, Thornywood Community Council and ViewCare managed to get £1,000 from some funding to round about poverty. I can't remember where it was from. Patricia, was it Vardy? It was was it Vardy or something like that?
We'd get £2,500 from Arnold Clark.
That was
the community council, so we're going to give £1,000 to ViewCare to help with their Christmas promotion parcels. And as you know, people have been coming asking us for food in between times, so we were going to try and make sure we had like food and different things for winter that we can use in the miners as well for people with some of the rest of the funding.
And we've also set up the short life working group that Patricia mentioned earlier on, which within Bellshill, to do with Christmas. So there's 7 different organisations all involved in that as well. And that's a referral process that's coming through. Apart from the guys down at Thornywood, it's just a case of people being able to pop in to the miners if they need anything. But with regards to toys or anything like that that normally come from health visitors, that's going through the Salvation Army. BIP and Thornywood Community Council again have registered on the NHS portal that we have for funding. So both applications have been accepted. VIP, there was different projects that they've been involved in, from cooking to gardening, and Thornywood Community Council are looking about setting up a community hub around about getting in computers. So like a computer cafe, because obviously we realise down in the area there's a lot of people who are unemployed, but they can't have access to computers to register. So that was another thing that we're looking at, as well as looking at cooking classes into the future as well. So all that information's on the NHS portal, and we just need to wait to somebody very kind will give us some money. And that's me.
Thanks, Francis. Anybody any questions or comments for Francis? No. Thank you. Van Eyll, do we have anybody for Van Eyll tonight?
Chair, we have Sharon, but she's doing the minutes as well, so I'm not sure if she can multitask.
There's not really anything to update anyway. I was off last week, and in terms of Van Eyll, the only thing I can tell you is that our AGM and our conference is tomorrow, and that's it, basically. So that's me.
Thanks, Sharon. Any other business?
Chair, can I just, I've just put something on the chat bar. Is that okay if I just maybe expand on that?
It's fine,
Very
aye.
briefly, I'll just be a wee second. It was just to say that, just picking up on the point that Francis made there about the subgroups, just to, we really would encourage, you know, if you don't need to necessarily come to all of the community boards to be involved in a subgroup, and you don't necessarily need to be a board member. So it's just to remember that there might be people within the community who maybe don't have the confidence or don't feel that they want to come to a community board meeting, but have got real skill or experience in a particular subject area, or then that would be really kind of would want to participate maybe in a particular topic. So it was just to remind people of that, you know, we can take representation from much wider than the community board in terms of the subgroups, and there's a lot of people that probably can bring quite a lot to those subgroups and to develop the like priorities further. So it was just to encourage people, if you're somebody you think they're not interested in coming to the board, or they can't come to the board but they would be really good on one of the subgroups, then please just let us know, and we can always have a chat with them and support them. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Certainly, if everybody can take that on board, that's great. The date and the time of the next meeting is Tuesday, the 8th of March.
Sorry, Chair. I think Liz Duffy was wanting to make a point.
Liz?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, regarding digital inclusion, older adults that are living in residential care, if they test positive for COVID, they have to isolate in their own room. But sometimes, depending on where they are within the building, they don't have access to Wi-Fi, or the signal's really bad and they can't, you know, phone anybody or you know, have face-to-face contact with their friends or family. And I was just wondering if there was anything the North Lanarkshire and Bellshill Community Board were able to do to kind of assist with that, if it's not already been done and I don't know about it. It's just some people aren't having any contact with friends or family if they're having to isolate.
That's a good point. I know you can get enhanced signal things that you plug in. I know that some phone companies like EE, if you phone them up and tell them about it, they'll send you one free of charge to enhance the phone signal. It's the only thing I can think of at the moment, but I believe there is a project going on at the moment to get into their homes and that for the older people to teach them how to use the internet. And there is something like, we had a report of that at the last meeting. So that might be something that would be raised by them, you know.
Chair Alison's got her hand up, so she's maybe wanting to come in and offer some, but certainly, you know, there are a number of projects out there and we can certainly pull together some information, but Alison's maybe got something a bit more specific to respond.
Alison?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think, as Leanne says, there's been various projects. As you know, most residential homes and certainly in the Bellshill area are all are independent and run, and therefore it depends really on the provider in relation to Wi-Fi. Certainly in the early stages of the pandemic, where homes generally weren't able to facilitate visiting, and when specific homes have been locked down, there has been attention to getting devices in. I'm part of the Care Home Assurance Group, and it isn't something that's come up recently as raised as an issue, but I will double check, and I'm certainly happy to feedback specifically. And if Liz, if there's any specific area where you have heard that that's a concern, please let me know. And I can ask specifically about arrangements in that facility, because a lot of homes themselves have obviously expanded their capacity, both in terms of devices and Wi-Fi, and also, as Leanne says, there has been projects at times, and at times additional resource has gone in to homes. But I can't speak for everyone and say that it's accessible to every individual in every home. So if you've got a particular area where you think there might be a concern, let me know and I can certainly check that out.
Thanks, Alison. Is that okay, Liz? You're on mute.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? No. See, the next meeting's Tuesday, 8th of March at 6:30 PM. I'll see you all then. Christine, Leanne, can I ask you to stay on for a minute? So that's the end of the meeting. See you all. Have a nice Christmas and a happy and merry New Year. Good night.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Chair.
you.
everyone.
Chair, we're still live streaming, so I'm just going to end the live stream. Just give me a
Right.
wee second.